The first ever fight card in Saudi Arabia was just announced, and it's headlined by none other than Khamzat Chimaev. He's facing Robert Whittaker in a 5-round war that will have us at the edge of our seat for 25 minutes straight, and I honestly think it will be much closer than many think. I want you to think back to Khamzat's last fight against Kamaru Usman. He struggled against a welterweight who was on 10 days' notice. Kamaru had no time to put on extra muscle. Sure, he weighed in around middleweight, but that was just a bunch of extra water in his body. If I was to guess, there was at least a 20-pound weight difference between the two the night they stepped in the octagon together. I know that number seems crazy, but a year ago, Khamzat posted a photo of him walking around at 217 pounds, which means he definitely put on a decent amount of weight in between the weigh-ins and the fight. When Kamaru weighed in for that fight, he weighed in at 184 pounds, an indicator that he more than likely did not put on any more weight afterwards, since he wasn't even at the limit. What a lot of people seem to do is they downplay the skill of Kamaru Usman. Everyone seems to forget the fighter he was before the head kick that shocked the world. If Kamaru survived for one more minute in that fight against Leon and then went up to middleweight to fight Khamzat on 10 days notice, I bet that he would have been a sizable favorite rather than an underdog. As much as I just hyped Usman up, like I said earlier, Khamzat had such a significant weight advantage, as well as way more time to prepare, and even then he struggled heavily towards the later rounds. If that fight was a 5-round fight like this one is, I would be very confident in saying that Kamaru would have gotten his hand raised whether by decision or stoppage. Even then, a large number of fans already think he won that fight. Now, I'm not saying because Khamzat struggled against one of the best fighters of all time that he will lose to Whittaker, but Whittaker has been fighting in 5-round wars against the best middleweights in the world for 7 years now. I did the math, and out of all of the 5-round fights that Whittaker has been in, he has won 89% of the 4th and 5th rounds of those fights. Meaning if he doesn't get finished within the first 2 rounds, I think he has a very good chance at winning this fight. I've seen some people online say that since Whittaker was able to negate the wrestling of Yoel Romero, an Olympic wrestler, Khamzat shouldn't be a problem for him to defend against. Personally, that's not much of a factor for me. Yoel is not known as a wrestler when he's inside the octagon, and although he did find some success against Whittaker in his fights, it was a very long time ago. Khamzat will undoubtedly be much more of a wrestling threat than anyone Whittaker has ever faced. I'm very confident in saying that I think Khamzat will dominate Whittaker for the first round or even the first 2 rounds. But as long as he doesn't get a 10-8 in both of those rounds or finish the fight, the longer it goes, the more it favors Whittaker. Combining the performance we saw against Kamaru Usman with the statistic of Whittaker winning 89% of the 4th and 5th rounds, I can also confidently say that Whittaker will more than likely win the 4th and 5th rounds if he makes it there. Although I do think it's likely Khamzat could finish Whittaker within the first 2 rounds, I think it's likely Whittaker could finish Khamzat in the later rounds as well. Now in terms of Whittaker's more recent fights, I did not like how he looked against Dricus du Plessis at all. Now, he does claim that it was the worst he's ever felt going into a fight, but Dricus put a pace on Whittaker that made him crumble, and I think Khamzat will take it even further. The most impressive part of Khamzat's game to me is the pace that he pushes, and although we do know he ends up fading eventually, if any other fighter was to put on a pace that Khamzat does, I'm not sure they'd be able to walk after the first round, let alone do it for another round. The question to be answered about this fight is if Khamzat can finish Whittaker within the first 2 rounds. If he can't, I'm not sure if he can win this fight. If Whittaker starts defending the takedowns and gaining confidence in his striking, Khamzat would have to survive in that cage with a much better striker than he's ever faced before. Not only will he be stuck in there with a better striker, if he's not getting takedowns anymore, that means he's probably tired. And time again, I hear fighters repeatedly say that they don't fear getting knocked out or submitted when in the octagon. They fear getting exhausted while being trapped inside the cage with a man who is trying to kill you. Just to remind you, Whittaker stood toe-to-toe with Adesanya in their second fight, making it extremely competitive. If that Whittaker shows up and makes it to the later rounds, Khamzat may not make it to the scorecards, and even if he does, he more than likely won't get his hand raised. Unless Khamzat has found some new source of added cardio, I don't really see him winning this fight by decision. One thing about the Dricus fight is that Robert took much bigger shots against Paulo Costa and survived them compared to the shots that hurt him from DDP. That means that there could really be some truth to what he was saying about having the worst fight of his life. From what I've seen of people talking online, they act as if Khamzat will have no trouble getting through Rob. And even though that could be very true, so is the possibility of Khamzat getting seriously tested in a 5-round war. Now, Khamzat may adjust how he approaches this fight. He might not put pressure on Rob like he usually does since it's a 5-rounder, but I think if he does change how he approaches this fight, he will be even more likely to lose. I think Khamzat is so good because of the pace he could push early, and if he changes that, he could take away his chance of finishing the fight early, and playing a point game with Robert Whittaker over 5 rounds is risky business. When this fight does take place, I think the likelihood of either fighter winning is about the same. I may lean Khamzat just a little more because of Rob's fight against DDP, but yet again, DDP is the champion. Like I said earlier, if Khamzat is to win this fight, I think it will definitely be inside the distance. I don't really see him being able to adjust his style to win a 5-round decision. The only way I see it happening is if he gets a 10-8 in the first 2 rounds and then somehow survives to the final bell. If Rob is to win this fight, I think it will be by decision, but I also wouldn't be completely shocked if he gets a late finish, considering that if he doesn't get finished early, Khamzat will probably be gassed. How do you guys think this plays out? Do you think I'm totally wrong and Khamzat could have improved his cardio and is prepared for a 5-round war? Or do you think it's plausible that he gasses out and gets finished late like I said? If I had to say who I think would win, I'd have to say that Khamzat stays undefeated. But like I said, I think it's way closer than people are making it out to be. I'm super hyped for this fight and loved making this video. If you want to see more, leave a like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.